Professor Oded Lifshitz from the Department of Archaeology and Ancient Near Eastern Cultures at Tel Aviv University is inviting you to join him to a journey following those who composed the historical descriptions in the Hebrew Bible.
The Untold Story of the King of Judah, Part C. Out of sight, out of mind, and far away in time. The Untold Stories of the Lowlands, the Shfela, and its history. Chapter 1. The Untold Story of the Lowlands and the tribe of Judah from the beginning of biblical history to the days of Josiah. The Lowlands do not occupy an important place in biblical historiography. The references to this area are limited to short periods of time. Moreover, the Lowlands are only mentioned in accordance with the goals of biblical writers within the broader story they wanted to tell, and the descriptions of the history of the Lowlands are targeted to serve the goals of this historiography, which has always been focused on Jerusalem, the Temple, and the House of David. In the following chapters, among other subjects, we will discuss Sennacherib's campaign in 701 BCE and the bitter fate of the Lowlands in this campaign. We will also discuss the Assyrian arrangements that were made after the military campaign, through which control of most of the Shfela territories were transferred to the kingdom of Ekron, and Judah lost its grip of the entire region. As we will see later, loss of the lowland areas resulted in severe settlement and demographic crisis, as well as in severe damage to the economy. The king of Judah had to deal with these difficulties in creative ways, mainly through the development of agriculture in this hill country north and south of Jerusalem, with unprecedented reliance on settlement in the Benjamin region and around Jerusalem. This is evidence of the importance of the lowlands to the settlement system of Judah before Sennacherib's campaign. The combination of fertile soil and climate conditions that enable the growing of grain in addition to olive and grape groves made the lowlands the most important economic center in Judah in the 8th century BCE until Sennacherib's campaign. Indeed, the lowlands demonstrated agricultural potential unparalleled in the Hill Kingdom, with its limited resources and development possibilities. Thus, it is understandable why most of the fortified cities in Judah in the 8th century BCE were concentrated in the lowlands, and the center of economic and administrative activity was also in this area. That is why the loss of these territories dealt a very severe blow to Judah's administration and economy, as well as a setback of its settlement and demographic expansion, from which it was unable to recover until its final destruction. As long as Assyria ruled in Judah, and the arrangements it had instituted after Sennacherib's campaign continued to exist, Judah had no option to return and restore its position in the lowlands. These arrangements remained in place until Assyria withdrew from its hold in the Levant and the beginning of the last third of the 7th century BCE, at the same time as Josiah's reign in Judah. Indeed, at this stage, there was no geopolitical vacuum in the region. Egypt had taken Assyria's place apparently as a successor kingdom and established its rule in the region for about a quarter of a century until it was overcome by the armies of Nebuchadnezzar in 605-604 BCE. However, apparently in the 25 years in which they ruled the southern Levant, the Egyptians didn't establish close control over interior parts of the land. Thus, after the Assyrian withdrawal and the cancellation of the arrangement that the Assyrians made in Judah in general and in the lowlands in particular, Judah would have some room for maneuver and could return and take control of the lowlands. The starting point for the discussion in this chapter is that at the end of the days of the first temple, during the reign of King Josiah, and after Assyria withdrew from its control over the entire Levant, Judah was able to return to control the lowlands following a period of about 70 years from 701 BCE Assyrian military campaign to the Assyrian withdrawal from all its holdings in the Levant in the 630s. The settlement, administrative, and economic recovery in the lowlands began only after Assyria withdrew from the area. However, it was only partial. Judah didn't regain the former power of the settlement and didn't realize the economic potential in the lowlands that it had in the 8th century BCE, when the local population of the lowland thrived, agricultural flourished, olive oil production was at its peak, and Judah could profit from its control over the area. In the days of Josiah, a new phase began in the history of the region. This was the stage when Lachish was re-founded and Azekah was also rebuilt to become an important administrative center in the central lowlands. However, even after the restoration of the lowland, even after it began, in the last third of the 7th century BCE, its population had shrunk substantially, while the area declined in the intensity of urbanization and fortifications and in its economy from its peak a century prior. In contrast to the demographic and settlement power in the region before Sennacherib's campaign, at this point the restoration was based on small Judean population which resettled the area and built individual administrative and military centers, which served as the border forts of Judah and as centers for collection of agricultural produce and the production of olive oil and wine. The full scope of the rural system during this period remains unclear. Notably, however, important cities such as Bet Shemesh, Tel Goded, Tel Judeide, and Tel Bet Mirsim were not resettled or were only partially resettled outside the boundaries of the fortified city that existed in the 8th century BCE before Sennacherib's campaign. As we will see later, it may have been the case that part of the population that returned to the lowlands in the days of Josiah included descendants of refugees who had fled to the hill country before, during and after Sennacherib's campaign, and now, after 70 years, were allowed to return to the lands of their ancestors. However, based on both the history of the area and the archaeological findings, it seems that those who returned at this stage were not the local inhabitants of the original lowland tribes, who were killed, exiled, and fled during the Assyrian military campaign. Rather, it was a small population that arrived, and it came from around Jerusalem with a Judean material culture. This is the Shephelah that historically was under the rule of Judah in the days of Josiah. This is the reality that was known at that time and which the Jerusalemite elite knew. This is also the reality described by the Deuteronomistic authors. In terms of the biblical description, which express the ideology of the kings of the house of David, Judah's control of the lowlands is clear. The belonging of the lowlands to Judah is self-evident, and all the inhabitants of the lowlands are inseparable part of the kingdom of Judah. Moreover, as per the biblical description and the Jerusalemite conception, this has always been the case. Or it has been so, at least, since the conquest of the land in the days of Joshua, since the beginning of Deuteronomistic historiography. Here lies the seed, the source of the untold story of the lowlands and the tribe of Judah from the beginning of biblical history to the days of Josiah. This almost self-evident concept, rooted in the biblical description and the past from it to all the reconstructions of the history of the kingdom of Judah and to the lowlands, is based on a very short period of time in which Judah ruled the lowlands, and the population of the lowlands was indeed Judean. But was this also the case in ancient times, where those who lived in the lowlands at the end of the second millennium BCE and throughout the days of the first temple, inseparable part of the tribe of Judah? Were Jerusalem and the temple always of prime importance to the inhabitants of the lowlands as well? The source of this historical reconstruction is the list of cities of the tribes of Judah and Benjamin in the book of Joshua, which most scholars agree on dating to the days of Josiah. In chapter 15 in the book of Joshua, within the list of cities of the tribe of Judah, the most detailed list of cities of the lowlands is given in a sequence of 3 geographical divisions which are within a well-defined district whose name is given at the beginning of the list in verse 33, and which stipulates that all the cities in these districts are located in the lowlands, the Shfela. In the first division, verses 33 to 36, 15 settlements are mentioned. However, the summary in verse 36 includes 14 cities with their villages, most of which are well identified and are located in the north of the lowlands, around the central streams, Nahal Sorek and the Elah stream, which cross the lowland from the east to the west and created fertile valleys. Among the settlements that belong to this division are Eshtaol, Tzor'ah, Zanoach, Yarmut, Adulam, Socho, and Azekah. The second division, in verse 37 to 41, includes 16 settlements, including Lachish, Botzkat, and Makedah, but only a few of the settlements that are included in this group are identified with certainty. The third division, in verses 42 to 44, includes 9 settlements, including Keilah and Marisha. The importance of the lowlands within the economic and administrative system of Judah is also expressed in the natural way in which it became an important district within the realm of the kingdom, as mentioned during the brief period that lasted at most about 50 years, beginning no earlier than the days of Josiah in the 630s and continuing until the destruction of Jerusalem in 586 BCE. Apart from the list of cities in the book of Joshua, the division into the kingdom's districts, which include the lowlands, is described in exactly the same way in the areas of the land conquered by Joshua. The description in Joshua 10, verse 40, and in other places in the book of Joshua, notes that Joshua defeated the whole land, the hill country and the Negev, and the Shephelah, and the slopes, and all their kings. Also the prophet Jeremiah, who lived in this exact time period, also describes similarly the geographical and administrative division of the kingdom. Thus, for example, in Jeremiah 17, verse 26, it states, "And people shall come from the cities of Judah and the places around about Jerusalem, from the land of Benjamin, from the Shephelah, from the hill country, and from the Negev." While in chapter 32, verse 44, the reality of that period of time is described with expectations for the future. I'm quoting, "Fields shall be bought for silver, and deeds shall be signed and sealed and witnessed in the land of Benjamin, in the places about Jerusalem, and in the cities of Judah, in the cities of the hill country, in the cities of the Shephelah, and in the cities of the Negev." End of quote. It can be assumed that during this period, the administrative division into 6 districts of 6 geographical regions was common in Judah, which included the Negev, the hill country, the lowlands, the eastern margins, the region around Jerusalem, and Benjamin. Evidence for the importance of the lowlands is also expressed in the fact that two of the kings who reigned at the end of the First Temple period married women from this origin. Ammon, Josiah's father, married a woman from Botzkat, and this we can read in Second Book of Kings, chapter 22, verse 1. His mother's name was Yedidah, the daughter of Adaiah of Botzkat. A settlement named Botzkat, located according to the list of cities in the book of Joshua, near Lachish. Also, Josiah married Chamutal, the daughter of Jeremiah of Libnah, a city in Shfela, who was the mother of Jehoahaz, the king after, and of Zedekiah, the last king of Judah. From the perspective of the days of Josiah, when Judah ruled the lowlands and the lowlands comprised an integral part of the kingdom's territory, the written description, which was also accepted naturally by most scholars, presented the lowlands as always having been part of the kingdom of Judah and their inhabitants as an inseparable part of the tribe of Judah since the establishment of the kingdom. This means that the tribe of Judah not only controlled a broad territory which stretched from the south of Hebron hills to the region north of Jerusalem, but it also included geographical divisions that were far from the hill country. This was never the geopolitical situation that prevailed in the area, and it is contrary to all the historical reconstructions based on the written sources, mainly from the end of the second millennium BCE, and it is also contrary to the reconstructions based on the archaeological research. Moreover, in all these biblical descriptions, the Shfela is described as a single geographical division, despite the fact that it includes subunits with different characteristics, different urban centers, different neighbors to the west and to the east, and apparently a different history as well. Thus, the Sorek Valley in the north, which housed the important center in Bet Shemesh, is a well-defined geopolitical unit with clear borders located between hilly ridges that surrounded it from the north and from the south. It is geographically close to Jerusalem to the east and is connected to it through the road that descend from the hill country, mainly through Nahal Sorek. To the west of this valley are the cities of Tel Batash, biblical Timnah, and Tel Mikne, biblical Ekron, which are at the edge of the lower lowlands on the border of the coastal plain. The Elah Valley is at the center of the lowlands, with the city of Azekah in the center. About 7 kilometers west of Azekah is the city of Gat, Tel Etzafi, which was built on the banks of the Elah stream on the border of the lowlands and the coastal plain. This valley was of great strategic importance as one of the main entrance gates to the hill country from the west. Indeed, from the Elah Valley, one can go northeast towards Jerusalem, east toward Bethlehem, and southeast towards Hebron. Azekah completely controls the important crossroads of the west-east road from Gat towards the hill country and the north-south road that connects Bet Shemesh and Lachish along the natural geopolitical border between the hill country tribes and the coastal tribes, the biblical border between Judah and Ekron and Gat. To the south of the Elah Valley flows the Govrin stream, with the city of Maresha located in its center, and Tel Burna and Tel Zait located in its western part, and on the border of the lower lowlands to the west. Further south is Lachish stream, with the city of Lachish at its center. In my opinion, this presentation of the Shfela, whose very name indicates that it was referred to in that way by those who looked at it from the hill country down, and saw this area as the lower region to the west, and which quite naturally also became in historical research as the lowlands of Judah, Shfelat Yehuda, becoming completely identified with the territories of the kingdom of Judah throughout history, when their population is considered an integral part of the tribe of Judah, This is ahistorical and is part of the Untold story. The lowlands were never part of the hill country and always maintained a degree of independence separating between the mountain tribes and the line of coastal cities in the lower lowlands. Throughout the second millennium and also in the first millennium BCE, until Sennacherib's campaign, local tribes lived in the lowland, each living in geographical space that belonged to it. The tribe of the Sorek Valley, with Bet Shemesh as its central city, the tribe of the Elah Valley, with Azekah as its central city, and the tribe of Lachish stream, with Lachish as its central city. It is also possible that additional tribes existed in the area within smaller geographical units. Historically, as long as the cities within the border of the coastal plain, especially Ekron and Gat, and on the coastal plain itself, especially Ashkelon, were strong, they control the geopolitical units of the lowlands, whereby the proximity of the Sorek Valley to Ekron and Timnah and the proximity of the Elah Valley to Gat turned these areas into the natural domains of control of these cities as long as they were large and strong. Lachish, which was a little further from the large and powerful cities of the lowlands border and the coastal plain, Lachish and Ekron, and closer to the mountain tribes in the Hebron region, could tie its fate with the mountain tribes more easily than Bet Shemesh and Azekah, which were very close to Ekron and Gat. It is also possible that additional tribes existed in this space in between them, and their loyalty was dependent on who was stronger. When the great cities of the lowlands and the coastal plain became weaker, the cities of the lowlands could grow and become stronger, each in its own time. On the other hand, when the cities of the coastal plain, Ekron and Gat, were weakened, and when the hill country tribes with their urban centers in Hebron and Jerusalem grew stronger, they could take control of the lowland areas, take advantage of the economic resources of these areas, and establish the central cities, Bet Shemesh, Azekah, Lachish, at the western border in facing the coastal region. If we return with this understanding of the history and geopolitical nature of this region to the biblical description, it becomes clear that these descriptions also testify to how far and detached the Shephelah was from Judah, and understand that for long historical periods it was considered a peripheral area. Thus, for example, when David fled from Saul, he and his loyalties found refuge in the lowlands, in the area between Keilah and Adullam, far away from the hands of Saul and his men in the hill country, and we can read about it in the first book of Samuel, chapter 22 and 23. David could take advantage of the location of the lowlands region as a buffer zone between the dominions of Gat, of the Philistines, and the mountain tribes, and find refuge there, just as he later found refuge in the Judean desert, which was also outside the permanent dominions of the rulers of the hill country from their centers of control in Jerusalem and Benjamin. A similar status and parallel history also existed in the lowlands region during the late Bronze Age, when a system of tribes and cities existed in the area, serving as a counterweight to the hill country tribes and their urban centers. We will address this in the next chapter, where we will advance further in our understanding of the history of the lowlands. We'll focus on the history of Azekah as a test case for understanding the entire area, and we'll follow the existence of the tribe that lived in the Elah Valley throughout most of the second millennium BCE, demonstrating how this tribe was long under the control of Gat, the Philistines, both during the time when a strong Canaanite city existed there, especially in the late Bronze Age, and when a Philistine city existed at the site at the beginning of the Iron Age. we'll see how over the course of long periods the Elah Valley tribe was able to strengthen and build the city of Azekah as a rich and powerful center, and how only after the complete destruction of Gat by Hazael, king of Aram Damascus, towards the end of the 9th century BCE, could Judah consolidate its rule over the tribe and turn Azekah into a city under the rule of the kings of Judah. We will examine the connections between Jerusalem and Azekah, the cultural influences that Judah had on the Elah Valley and that the Elah Valley had on Judah, and will describe the severe impact of that Sancherib campaign had on the entire region, which was destroyed, emptied of its population, undertaken by Ekronite control. We will describe how only in the days of Josiah did the kingdom of Judah directly rule in the area, which was resettled with a Judean population that came down from the hill country. It is possible that part of that population was originally from the lowlands, that after Sennacherib's campaign they found refuge in the Jerusalem area. The descendants might have come down after many years to resettle the lowlands again. This will be the subject of the next chapter.